Today we're going to talk about more of your civic work in general that you've been doing for most of your life. And so I want to start that off by, if you can, to the best of your ability, can you list off all of the organizations that you give your time to without, mostly without compensation?
Um, well, I worked with Special Olympics for well over 30 years as a coach and as a volunteer at different state events. I've done activities with Hayesville Pride, which is a local civic group. Um, I have done. I've been on Planning Commission in Hayesville, which is an unpaid position. When I started on City Council in 2001, it was an unpaid position, but since then, it has become a paid position. It's $100 a month, so it's not like we're getting rich on that. But I've been doing that since 2001, except for a 2-year gap in there where I moved within the city, so I changed my location. Um, Honestly, I past that, I can't really think off the top of my head different things. I've always done activities with different. Hayesville Healthy Habits is a nonprofit coalition in town that I try to work with. I always do activities with the Hayesville Public Library. They have a group called Friends of the Library, which I'm kind of an honorary member of. Sometimes I go to their events. Sometimes I just make sure I'm the one that promotes what's going on at the library. I also, being on city council, I try to promote what's going on in the school district as well. Being employed in the school district, I'm also involved with a lot of different coaching and other activities that way. So I get out and see a lot of people while I'm busy in the community.
Okay. All right, that's a fair answer. And what of those that you can recall, what is the earliest organization you recall being involved with?
Um, in 1999, Hayesville had a pretty significant tornado that came through and basically erased the downtown part of our city. Unfortunately, it also killed 5 people just south of our community. So that was, of course, is much worse. But our city itself was pretty uh, devastated by the tornado physically. And the mayor at that time, Tim Norton, asked me to become a member of the Planning Commission in early 2000 because we had a lot of new businesses that were wanting to come in. We were trying to set up what we wanted our landscape to look like, how we wanted to build the downtown with a new start. And so that was first my first dealing with being involved with it. I've been around it my entire life because of my mom and my dad.
Okay. Um, can you give me a one sentence summary of the purpose of the planning commission or what you felt was most important?
The Planning Commission approves guidelines and also will approve some zoning for types of businesses and regulations for those businesses and for residential areas coming into the city.
Okay. And what do you think was a driving idea or hope of yours while you were working with the planning commission?
To make Hayesville a pleasing and friendly looking community. We were already that way. The people in the community are already that way. A lot of the businesses that were damaged or destroyed in the tornado were built in the 50s or 60s. They were old. Some of them were run down. Some of them were empty. They weren't near as efficient as they could be. And we knew with basically starting from scratch, we had a real opportunity to make the downtown look nice, get some newer businesses in, and I think we were pretty successful at that.
Okay. Can you give me a short summary of the goal of Special Olympics or why it's particularly important to you and what work involved with it is most important to you?
Um, when I was in a 7th grade PE class, I had a teacher come in from outside, and she was looking for some volunteers to come out and work at a Special Olympics meet. And I was one of them that got selected to go out, and I was pretty much hooked. Being an athlete at that time myself, um, it was just so refreshing and just really cool to be around kids that were excited about the results from their efforts, no matter what those results were. They knew they were doing the best they could. They were having a blast. Everybody out there's cheering for them. Um, it's just it just got in my blood, and it's something I've always loved. I've never had any of my own kids on Special Olympics, but my kids have always been around it just because of my love for it and my enthusiasm for it. And I think it's just a great thing for not only for the kids that are involved, but for everybody that volunteers or comes and watches, because I think it gives everybody a fresh look at what positive sportsmanship and love of yourself and others really means.
Okay. Can I get a description of what H3 does that you find important and how you think you add to Hayesville Healthy Habits goals?
Uh, when Hayesville Healthy Habits got started, they were mostly focused on underage drinking, which is an issue in not only in our city, but in lots of places around the United States. And kind of getting data and starting to get things together to find out what is actually going on in the community was really important, not just for the group, but for this community as a whole to maybe be able to target situations. But since their beginnings, they've targeted different kinds of drug abuse. They've started talking about opioid addiction, and they're also tackling mental health and the suicide epidemic that has hit Kansas over the past few years. And bringing those things out in the community and actually talking about them and trying to find solutions and ways to help with that is the main reason I like being involved with H3, and I am very proud of the work that they do.
Great. How about the Hayesville Community Library? What do you think is particularly important about their goal, and how do you think that they affect the community?
I think the library can be the lifeblood of a community. There's a lot of people in town that may not be able to afford internet access in their house, but they know they can go to the library and have internet access. They can apply for jobs. They can do all sorts of things at the library on the computers. But it's also a place where you can go and maybe get a little bit of solitude, try to find a nice quiet spot and just pick a book or a magazine and sit down and have a read and maybe kind of get away from the hectic day-to-day things that people have to deal with. I think it's our community library works very well with the school district. Like in the summertime, all the elementary schools have a read-in program where they can read books and take tests and they win prizes and stuff. And our community library works with the school district so that each elementary school has a day that they can come in, an evening where they can come in and do these tests and do things like that. They have programs for kids to come in and watch movies. They have story time for younger kids to come in. In the summertime, they have all kinds of activities and they have a reading program. It's just a way to not only give adults someplace to go and maybe read or apply for jobs, it gives kids someplace to go and escape in their imaginations and also do some really cool activities.
All right. You have served on Hayesville's Park Board, correct?
Correct. I forgot about that. I was also I was chairman of it for a while as well.
How long did you work with Park Board?
Approximately 4 years.
Okay. And first of all, what is the purpose of the Park Board, and what, again, was like a primary motivator of you being involved?
Our park board has a budget. They get all the money. We have fireworks stands that come in town, and everybody that pays for a license to have a fireworks stand, that money goes to the park board. The park board also gets a little bit of money from a sales tax that we have here. They basically try to make sure that our parks are nice, user-friendly, and there's activities for people to do. Recently, we have replaced a lot of equipment in a lot of the parks. We've also made internet accessible in some of the parks with some wireless things. They plant trees. They decide where trees are going to get planted. Um, they are highly involved in what goes on with our city swimming pool. We've got a splash pad. We've got plans for other splash pads. We just have a new park that we're opening up called the Randall Dorner Park that has soccer fields. It's got a 10-acre lake on it. We're still in process. It's open now, but we're still in process and doing some things with that. My motivation for being on that was trying to find things to get the city to move forward. We were doing a lot of the same things, had the same equipment. I am happy to say that I came up with the idea of having of our first disc golf course that we put in Riggs Park. I knew that was something that was coming up. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was something that wouldn't cost very much money to set up. And that is one thing that I was very happy that we did. And then in Pride Park, we have a new, it's not new now, but we have a water feature, a big waterfall, a big fountain in Pride Park, and some other activities. When we were looking at the water feature, when I was in the park board, we realized that we did not have the funds yearly to be able to do that fountain. So with the help of others in my direction, when I was chair, we decided to start putting about $5,000 a year in the bank and basically bank it and try to build that up. And after about 6 years, that money, along with some other money from the city, enabled us to get the fountain, which is a centerpiece in downtown Hayesville now.
Excellent. And then how about Hayesville Pride? What does that mean? What is Hayesville Pride? What do they do? And what has your work been with them like?
Hayesville Pride is actually a really good name for this because this is a group that just goes around and they do different things that helps build pride in the community. They put up Christmas lights at Christmas time. They do other activities. They are involved in parades that go on in town. They're involved in getting groups to come in. We just had somebody that came in from another town that came in and evaluated our city. They just came in as visitors and went to different places, and we sent some people to their town and did the same thing so that we could get interactions from other people, what they really think of our town. They work with groups like that. They work at trying to make sure that our parks are nice. They come up with ideas, perhaps how we can bring people in. They help clean up areas that may need cleaned up. Hayesville Pride's just a really good name for that group because that's what they do. They do things to help instill pride into the community.
And some examples, what's some of the work that you've done with Hayesville Pride?
I've helped put up Christmas lights a few times. We actually have a park in town now that's called Pride Park. And that park a lot of the work was done by Pride to get that park set up. That's where our fountain is, that water feature themselves. A lot of the work that was done to build that park up was done by Hayesville Pride members, and that's probably the biggest thing that I've worked with them on.
Okay. Why do you think that you work with so many groups? Why do you think that you're so invested in the community in such a number of ways?
Modeling. My parents have been in Hayesville since 1954, other than leaving for 2 years when my father was drafted. They went to New Mexico and they came back. They've just always been involved in their community, their church. My dad just finished up a little over 60 years being involved with the school district here, including being a teacher, a counselor, and a school board member. He's 87 years old now, and he just retired from the school board. My mother's been the treasurer for the Methodist Church for years and years. She's worked in the school district. She worked in the only bank in Hayesville in the 50s when that was the only bank. She's worked at several other places here in town. But Dad's been mayor. He's been on city council. He was a police commissioner. I just grew up with my parents being involved in the city and the community. And so I think that's the way things are supposed to be. I feel like that if people aren't involved in their city or their community, they don't have as big of a stake in it, and things can start going wrong. If you have people that really care, want to be a part of their community to make it a better place, then it's going to become a better place. And I think not only me, my wife, my kids, all have done things and are involved in things in the city. And they get older, and as they go to school and move away, I expect that they'll still be involved in their communities no matter where they are.
And if you're both a teacher and a coach, if you had a student or an athlete ask you just about volunteer work, about community service, what is one message that you would want them to have?
Well, most of the time when I have kids come and ask me about that, they're looking for service hours. They want things to do in their community, and I always say talk of Special Olympics. That's always my first go-to. It's not necessarily just local because it's a nationwide and internationally actually, but I always that's always my first place to go. But I also there's opportunities at the library. There's opportunities with Hayesville Healthy Habits, Pride. There's the Mayor's Youth Council we have here, where youngsters can actually get involved in government, trying to work on getting some internships on different programs we have here, like the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. I always try to lead the kids into something that, not something that they're going to be doing what somebody tells them to do, but maybe get them involved in something that they will be able to make decisions with and be involved with, because that always is a better selling point. If you're working on things that are your ideas, it's improving the community, that's even better for the community.
Okay. Now, moving our focus to Topeka. When you served in the House previously, can you talk about potentially some of the organizations that you worked with or volunteer themselves who came to speak to you about policy? Just did anything like that happen while you were serving previously?
We had a lot of people from nonprofits that would be community based that would come and talk, and worked with Make-A-Wish Kansas to try to give them a tax exempt status so that when they bought things for wishes, they wouldn't have to pay taxes on. Unfortunately, at the time that we were working on that, we couldn't get that quite passed. Just a lot of not anything specifically as far as the legislature. There was 2 different times we went to the one of the shelters in Topeka, and we would go and help sort out food and clean up some stuff like that in some of the shelters in Topeka. As far as groups, though, it was mostly just trying to get some legislation passed to make things easier for them. A lot of it had to do with trying to cut taxes or to perhaps find ways for them to get grants.
Okay. Um, what are some, not necessarily groups that you have worked with, but what do you think are major impacts that nonprofits or groups like Pride have impacted District 98 in general?
Well, there's in District 98, there's also a lot of neighborhood associations. And I know that they kind of keep neighborhoods together. They keep people informed. If there's an issue, that gives them more of a group that can go to, let's say, the Wichita City Council, which we're in a lot of area, District 98 is in District 3 of the Hayesville City Council. And so there's at least 3 or 4 different neighborhood groups and neighborhood associations that I know of that let's say one year they were having trouble with dogs and mail delivery. Somebody was having a dog that was getting out, and so everybody in this area was having to go to the post office to pick up their mail. They refused to deliver mail. Well, instead of having 1 or 2 different people from this block get a hold of the city council member, the neighborhood group, they were able to just go up and meet with the council member as a group so that they understood what was going on. And it took about 2 weeks, but that situation did get alleviated and people started getting their mail delivered there. So just different groups like that that can focus on things that go on, and that's why instead of saying city, I want to say community, because a lot of places have different groups that within a city that is just in their local community, their neighborhood, however you want to put it. And when they band together, they can come up with better ideas, and it's easier to solve situations when people are talking and know each other as well.
Okay. Um, so as a candidate who has this very strong background in community service that you've been doing literally since middle school, so it wasn't part of, it wasn't necessarily part of your campaign plan. You've been doing it your entire life. What do you think, as a candidate and as a representative, that experience brings to work with you that candidates that do not have that background may be missing out on?
Knowledge of the area and the people who live in it. When you're involved in events and involved in groups, you meet more and more people, you hear more and more ideas, you hear about problems, but you also hear about solutions. You aren't just tied to your neighborhood if you're out working with different groups, because you hear about what's going on in this neighborhood and that neighborhood. And that is one reason I've always liked staying active in District 98. When I ran for District 98, the north half of Hayesville is in that, as well as a lot of south and southeast Wichita. I've been involved in Hayesville a lot over the years. As I ran, I've started doing more things in southeast Wichita. I got involved with the Oaklawn area and their group, trying to learn about how they've improved things in Oaklawn. The different community or neighborhood groups that I talked about. I learned about the dog parks and different activities that the parks, all sorts of different activities, and also different problems that people have in South and Southeast Wichita, which a lot of them are the same problems we have in Hayesville, but it's enabled me to have contact with more people. And when you're out there with contact with more people, you know what people want, what they expect, and what they need.
Okay, so would you say that your experience working with all of these different groups has affected your the way you communicate with the communities? Like, do you think that?
On a lot of things, I'm more knowledgeable to be able to communicate now, because if somebody from Pawnee and K-15 calls me and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this lot up here, I've probably seen that lot because I've been up in that area as I'm driving the district and talking with people. So it just makes it's easier to try to solve problems and also understand problems when you have had a chance to talk about those problems or have seen those areas before, and it gives you an idea of what those issues might be. So it's just your increased knowledge. The more you're out and about, the more groups you're involved with, the more areas you've seen, your experience expands and your knowledge is better.
Okay. And so we've discussed in general the groups and organizations you've been involved with. What are groups that you are intending to participate in that you like they're on the schedule for the next year, and what are some major projects that you're going to personally be involved with in the upcoming year?
Well, over in the upcoming year, I'm going to be spending a lot of time campaigning, unfortunately. So that's going to take away from that will increase some of my civic involvement, but it'll also take away from some of it. Because I'll be knocking doors and talking to people, getting out that way instead of maybe taking care of specific events. So over the next year, I'm going to be mostly focused on the campaign. I'm not going to not be involved in different kinds of activities I do now, but as far as a lot of my energy and time will be spent, probably won't be with specific activities or specific groups, because I'm going to be out knocking doors, trying to talk to people to make sure that I'm still in line and understand what the people from District 98 want and expect from a representative.
Okay. despite the time that you will be spending knocking doors, what are some specific groups that you'll be communicating with about their concerns? Can you think of any like one-day events that might
The
be occurring?
the I communicate a lot with the Oak Lawn Improvement District, and I'll go to their meetings and I talk to them. I'm quite active with them, trying to find out their needs. I'll do things with Hayesville Fall Fest Committee and Hayesville Pride. There will be a big 4th of July celebration here in Hayesville. I'm sure I'll be in a parade for that. We have a big Fall Fest parade here. I'll probably be involved with that, as well as have a booth set up for that. Those are only the really big things I can think of right now.
So wrapping up the topic of community service in general, when you get to Topeka this next time, when you make it and you're back in office, what are some steps that that you think you're gonna make in your daily life, not necessarily policy, but like what are you gonna bring from your community service background and from these organizations that you're working with that's going to impact what you do in Topeka this time?
Well, I hope I did it last time I was there too. My plan is to actually represent the people of District 98. District 98, there are a lot of really hardworking people, but there are people that have to live paycheck to paycheck. And I think there's a lot of people that take that for granted that are in Topeka. They don't think about that. I am one of those people. I live paycheck to paycheck. And I think it's important that that knowledge and being involved with the people, working with them in different groups or listening to them when you're a member of a group, gives you an idea of the true needs of the people in District 98 and a lot of the people in the state. And so that's what I go up there and fight for. And it does have to do with policy. I think it's really important that we're careful with policy to make sure that policy does not damage or harm the most vulnerable people around us, as well as the people that are working hard every day. We need to make sure that they get the advantages of different types of policies that are out there, and also find ways to encourage people to become involved in their community and to come down to Topeka and let their voices be heard.
Okay. And is there anything else that you would like to say on the topic of civic work and community service?
It is just so important for young people, especially, to get involved. You find out in groups like right now, Hayesville's having this issue. A lot of our big community groups are really starting to age out. I mean, I'm 53 years old, and honestly, I'm one of the younger people in some of the groups we have here. We have to get young families, young parents, young people to get out and volunteer to coach and to volunteer in different groups to help improve their community. And I know time is hard, but when people find out that it's a great investment of time when they do that in their community.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.